Today we're going to talk about the Mega Backdoor Roth contribution. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my series on IRAs. To successfully do a Mega Backdoor Roth contribution, this actually involves a couple of moving parts, including your 401k at work, and then also maybe a Roth IRA. And I say maybe because there is an option for some employer plans to do a Roth conversion in plan, which means that we can make these Mega Backdoor Roth contributions all within a 401k. Now again, I want to be specific and go over the mechanics of how this works, but this does not constitute advice on which one you should do. If you want to chat about that, let's book a time offline. With all that said, let's dive right in. Let's start with the 401k rules. And specifically, we need to make sure that we understand the contribution limit for a 401k. So the annual contribution limit in 2021 is $19,500. If you're turning 50, or if you're already over the age of 50 in 2021, then that limit is $26,000. So if you've already maxed out how much you can put into a 401k, or if you're already on track to do that, then yeah, let's just kind of follow that path, because in most cases, you should be maxing out these contributions before even thinking about making a Mega Backdoor Roth IRA contribution. Now, here's the key. Will your 401k plan actually allow what are called after-tax contributions? Now, I want to be clear here. These are not Roth contributions. These are after-tax contributions. And this is something that you can find in your summary plan description, or maybe reach out to your HR department just to find the details. But specifically, we're trying to find out if your 401k plan allows these after-tax contributions. Because if the answer is no, well, then we can stop right there. Sorry, you can't do a Mega Backdoor Roth contribution. But let's just assume that you can make an after-tax contribution and kind of follow that path for the rest of this flowchart. So real quick, there's another rule that you need to check on. It's the actual contribution percentage test, that ACP test. Again, this is one I don't want to get into in today's video, but you should consult with your plan sponsor, or again, reach out to HR just to make sure that you are able to make these additional contributions. So assuming that there is room under the ACP test for you to make these contributions, what we need to keep in mind is, remember at the beginning when we looked at the flow chart, that annual contribution limit of $19,500 or $26,000 if you're 50 or older. Well, actually, the total amount that can go into a 401k is $58,000 in a year. Now, this includes the contributions that you make, it includes any matching employer contributions, and then also those after-tax contributions that we talked about before. So if the sum total of all the contributions made in this year is less than that $58,000 number, then yeah, the Mega Backdoor Roth contribution is going to be an option. So if we can answer yes to the sum total of all your contributions is going to be less than $58,000, then if we continue and say, yeah, we can make a Mega Backdoor Roth contribution, well, then the amount that you can put in minus employer and employee contributions is that $58,000 number. That means we can put in after-tax contributions up and above and beyond the $19,500 number that we discussed earlier. So here's where the decision needs to be made on exactly the mechanics of how this after-tax contribution is going to become Roth. So another check that you need to do with your HR or your plan sponsor is, does your 401k plan allow for in-plan Roth conversions? And this is a really important question, because this is going to determine if the final destination is going to be a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. If your 401k plan does allow for in-plan Roth conversions, then you can convert your non-Roth after-tax contributions. But what we have to keep in mind is you also must convert any earnings, which could be taxable. So this comes down to a timing consideration. I've seen different 401k plans allow daily Roth conversions, so that can minimize how much after-tax gains there are. But some plans allow it once a quarter or on a different time scale. So that's just something else that you have to keep in mind. There are tax implications for doing an in-plan Roth conversion within your 401k. But again, if you want to chat about that, let's connect offline. But in other words, to optimize the strategy is you should convert as soon as possible. Again, if your plan allows for automatic daily conversions, then you should be set. But this is something that you want to keep an eye on. This will minimize the tax costs and maximize the duration of favorable Roth treatment. So again, this is just assuming that your 401k allows for in-plan Roth conversions. But let's go back to that question and say, well, what if your 401k does not allow for in-plan Roth conversions? Well, then does your 401k plan allow for in-service? This is not a hardship distribution, but an in-service distribution. So in other words, can you remove money from the 401k while you're still working? Because if the answer to that is no, well, then you gotta wait until you leave your employer to roll out the 401k, including those pre-tax and those after-tax dollars. But let's keep going down that path. Let's just assume that for whatever reason you cannot do an in-plan distribution while you're in service. Well, then, like I said, you've got to wait until you leave that employer, and then upon separation from your employer, you can roll the non-tax, after-tax contributions into a Roth IRA. All of the pre-tax contributions and earnings, including those on the non-Roth after-tax contributions, those are taxable, but you can roll those into a traditional IRA to delay a taxable event. And you know, if you can afford to pay the tax and you want to maximize your Roth savings, you can roll these funds into a Roth IRA. Don't get me wrong. It's just that that is going to be a taxable conversion. So that's a topic for another video. But let's go all the way back to, does your 401k plan allow for in-service distributions? Again, these are non-hardship reasons. If the answer to that is yes, does your 401k plan maintain separate sub-accounts for pre-tax and after-tax? Now, this is really important. You know, this is pretty common. We do see this more and more these days, where a 401k is going to separate, you know, which amounts are pre-tax and which amounts are after-tax. But, you know, it is worth checking, because if the answer is no, well, then all distributions from your account must be funded proportionally with pre-tax and after-tax dollars using a pro rata rule. And this is where, you know, might get a little too tricky to make the Mega Backdoor Roth contribution an option for you, because then you have to roll out the non-Roth after-tax contributions to a Roth IRA. But then we've got these pre-tax contributions and earnings that could be taxable. So again, this makes things a little complicated. If this is the only option for you, again, maybe this is something that you should discuss with your tax professional, or of course, I'm happy to chat with you as well. But if we go back, and if your plan does allow for after-tax sub-accounts, then you can manage your pre-tax contributions separately, which means that you can minimize the earnings that accrue in the after-tax sub-account. And the more funds that you can get into the Roth IRA, obviously the more that we've got for tax-free growth. But this is where, you know, the distributions that you can do, once you've got those after-tax contributions separated in your 401k, then you can roll those out into a Roth IRA, again, if your plan allows for in-plan distributions. That is how after-tax contributions can turn into either the Roth 401k or the Roth IRA. I hope that helped. Again, my name is Alan Hensley. I'm a wealth advisor here at Merriman Wealth Management in Seattle, Washington. If you've got more questions, feel free to put a comment down below. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you can view all my videos on IRAs. And of course, if you want to connect offline, send me a message, put something on my calendar. I'm happy to talk through any sort of financial planning questions that you might have. Thanks so much. Have a great day.